I'm a huge believer of this concept of the three Ps. There's principles, then there's a process to pull the principles forward, and then there's the platforms that execute the workflow of those processes.
If you're hired, I think people trust that you're generally qualified for the role, but make it all about them to begin with. And when necessary, then you can fly the flag or the credentials that allows you to talk to that or propose this or what have you. That is super important. Make it about them, not about you.
Imagine you're meeting a peer who's also potentially going to be airdropped into a business, and they're about to inherit a team. What would you recommend they do and don't do in their first 30, 60, 90 days? Welcome to Outsource to Profits. I have a fantastic guest. Tina, do you mind introducing yourself and talking about who you are, what you do, and how you serve the world?
Great. It's a pleasure to be here, Jamie. Thank you so much for inviting me. And Tina Jesso, originally from Newfoundland, and went to Quebec to learn French. Yay, I did it, and worked for French and English for over 35 years. Started when I was 10 in sales, and worked in the Montreal market, and basically formed sales teams in financial services over 35 years. And it was just a wonderful career. And I retired from that, and I became a life coach for a little while, and then not to be stopped and to look for more challenges, because that's amazing in life. So I moved to the Ottawa area and got my real estate license, and now I'm in charge. After just being licensed for a couple of months, I was put in charge of a Royal LePage branch office in the Eastern Ottawa region. And what I do what was your last question again, Jamie?
Well, it's how you serve the world.
The world. So what really put me on the map in terms of sales and not really speaking the language and not having experience in sales is a relationship with people around me and learning from others and knowing and seeing ways to kind of motivate and discipline myself with the help of others. And I kind of put together a system that worked, and then I replicated that or taught that to my agents, and they created their own systems. So it's not about being reliant on one person in particular. That's my system. Okay. Don't rely on me. I can help guide you along the way, and then we're going to help make you more independent and keep on track with your goals, whatever they are.
Fantastic. And what Tina did when we were talking offline, I've started 3 agencies from scratch. So I went through the experience of homegrown talent from 1 person to 2 to now at Get Levrg, we're 115 people. But I only have experience in my own companies, of choosing and selecting, think of the talent acquisition process to the talent development process. But Tina has now inherited new teammates. And what we want to talk about today is for founders who may have been airdropped in by venture capital, by private equity. You're now in a business and you're doing now talent assessment. Tina, the first question I have for you is, you get airdropped into this real estate branch in Rockland. Can you describe how you first went through the cultural change and also went through your evaluation process? Before you started creating actions and activities, you probably went on a listening tour.
Yes.
Perhaps describe what that listening tour was like.
Okay, so great question. So it boils down to the same thing, whether you're raising your own team from scratch, so to speak, as you had mentioned, Jamie, or you are getting to know people who are already really experienced in their field. It's basically getting to know the individual on a personal basis, first and foremost. So yes, of course, what the common ground is the career, but getting to know who they are, who their kids are, what really floats their boat, so to speak, what do they do in life, and who they are as individuals before business even enters into it, right? So that was the first step, really letting them get to know me. right, with all the quirks and a little bit of the knowledge and the things that I could, that I had available for them. So it was more the personal connection, and yeah, and that gives so much emotional um, assets, for a better, lacking a better word, right? So you're creating some, you know, some good equity, if you will, before we even get into business and what their hopes and dreams are in the business. That was the first step.
One of the things that you and I talked about, and I'm a huge believer of this concept of the three Ps. There's principles, then there's a
Mm-hmm.
process to pull the principles forward, and then there's the platforms that execute the workflow of those processes. And you had mentioned what was amazing is as you came into the new branch, you relied back on first principles. Can you describe A, what are your first principles? Number two, did you have anyone that violated those first principles? And maybe walk through the experience of doing an assessment and maybe recognizing I can either coach people up or I have to coach them out because you don't align with my first principles.
Okay. You know what? That's a really good question, Jamie, and I hadn't thought of that before. So the thing of it is, yes, aligning with principles is really important. But what I did is I had actually shopped out all of the brokerages. I went and interviewed all the major brokerages, and I made it easy on myself. I found myself a brokerage that I saw. I was kind of a spy. I sat in the back of the room. I sat in on the trainings. I talked to people, and I knew what to look for in a successful agency. It wasn't just about all the training and all the successful people, it's about how people treat each other, right? How at home did I feel? How many people are helping each other along the way, which is one of the things I mentioned got me started in the business to begin with. And when I saw that and I recognized that, I chose that group. I shopped for them and I found them. Are they perfect? Does everything roll as it needs to? No, but the base is there. I feel there's a lot of integrity, there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of sharing, right? Those are all really important pillars for me, and I saw that right away. So going from there, it made it easier, right? Because I had a baseline, right? A really good baseline of people that I was working with. So it became easier. So and that point of view was really confirmed or validated as I met with very casual conversations with people at the beginning. And also as some trust was earned and I felt like there was some trust earned, I could push a little further, right? So what's going on with you exactly? How's it going with the branch? How do you see, right? What can I do more to support? What do you need? What are some things that we're missing, right? How could we? So it's really hearing people. Validation is all about hearing people and really hearing them and then acting on what you're hearing. Don't sweep it under, the rug afterwards. If there's uncomfortable stuff, it really needs to be talked about and addressed. So it's really important also to walk your talk, right? So talk to people and find out what's going on. And then slowly, I might not run back to them and say, I heard you so much that I'm implementing this. No, I brought things into the branch, right? So weekly accountability groups, weekly recognition. People in the real estate business, at least, what I'm seeing, there's a lot of different realtors who are very independent. They're independent contractors, but we all benefit from being seen and heard and recognized. So those are the three things that I basically tried to set up, and it started working really well. And I recognize them publicly. I do a lot of things on Facebook and LinkedIn, and point to people that are amazing. I found all the people and their core genius. What are people really good at? And I take a little bit from this one and that one, and then I have weekly meetings. And those people, I invite them to come on the stage and share what's going on. And people, it's not so. It is really important, when we share our gifts and other people are elevated, but you're more elevated as well when somebody sees you and you have the opportunity to share what you're doing and what really works.
Imagine you're meeting a peer who's also potentially going to be airdropped into a business and
Okay.
they're about to inherit a team. Are there any What would you recommend they do and don't do in their first 30, 60, 90 days? And you could, and the don't do could be from the experience of what maybe you did, and you say, well, that didn't work. That wasn't, I wouldn't do that again.
Right. So I think it's really important in the initial stage is to kind of fly under the radar, right? And even though I had, and the people that you're talking about that may be in that position, maybe they have like a great experience and great credentials, but that doesn't need to fly your flag. You don't need to fly that flag right at the beginning, right? If you're hired, I think people trust that you're generally qualified for the role, but make it all about them to begin with. And when necessary, then you can fly the flag or the credentials that allows you to talk to that or propose this or what have you. That is super important. Make it about them, not about you, right? So, and if anything that I say I would have done differently, like I'm several months into the role right now, and I gave a presentation to the whole brokerage. We're about 250 agents, and we're at a sales meeting. So I talked about closing the sales, and I said, "Well, what qualifies me to do all of this?" So I was listing my credentials, and people in the room were sitting back like, "Holy moly, I didn't." So maybe I could have flew my flag a little bit earlier. And now people are starting to come to me for different training on different things because sales is sales,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's warming up a prospect, evaluating their interests, creating a sales presentation, closing the sale, making phone
Can I
calls.
double click on that actually? Just as my last question, what is a sales principle best practice that you've experienced in other industries that just wasn't being done effectively in the real estate space that you were able to inject into like the culture or the workflow?
Great question. Just had an example of this last week, and it's what I talked about, closing the sale. Oftentimes agents will, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that this is something that maybe enhanced, the workflow of some agents. That's all, right? It's not a criticism, which is basically, I'm one and done. Right? You go on a listing presentation if there's interest and you really know your product, so to speak, and the services and you have confidence. You know you can serve this client. Why not sign the client up right away as a client, right? As opposed to then coming back for a second appointment. So I introduced this concept, ways of closing the sale, and I do a few transactions on the side. I'm all about walking my talk, right? So I'm doing some transactions myself so I can get the feel for it at the same time. And I'm one and done. So I brought up this concept. And since there was one agent that had, by coincidence, as I'm talking about this later on that day, they had a listing presentation with a potential client. Normally speaking, he would have just presented what he had to offer and then book another appointment to basically close them. And he didn't do it. He tried it in the first appointment. This client is looking for a $1.3 million property, and he closed them in the first appointment.
That's fantastic. And I'll bet you if you added a little data modeling for the team that the percentage of I'm going to try to close you in the first meeting versus rejection rate. So acceptance rate might be 75% of customers say yes, 25% say, let me think about it, versus those that say, here's my information, let's book a meeting and we'll come back for the second meeting, that the percentage of win rate is worse by going to the second meeting than it
Oh,
is the
yeah,
rejection rate of the first meeting. And the
absolutely.
science would play back to them. If you just go for the ask and you get a
Yeah,
no, you're still ahead in the game of blackjack. Because if you were to try to do the second meeting, we have a fall off rate of no show to meeting, canceling meetings, life gets busy.
exactly.
Yeah,
People get in the way, somebody else chimes in and has a different
100%.
opinion. You should use my agent. Whereas if you're signed, no, it's done. Right? You're protecting your
Yeah,
relationship by doing that.
yeah. Fantastic. How do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. It's really easy. You see my name at the bottom of the screen, tina@tinajesso.com. And my phone number is 613-327-7911. 911, right? Have a sales call, 911.
Fantastic. Thank you for being on Outsource to Profits.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.